Well, financial goals are a very common resolution this time of year. Our next guest is an author, radio, podcast, YouTube host, personal finance expert with Dave Ramsey's company, Ramsey Solutions, and he has a new book out. It's called Break Free from Broke. It's by George Kamel. So George is going to be joining me live on Zoom today to tell us more, especially about what he hears every day, listeners and viewers. George, Breaking Free from Broke is the title. Living in a nation with such wealth, it seems like we shouldn't feel broke, but you find that people you talk to do feel broke?
Absolutely, Dave. You know, America's become land of the free and home of the broke. And it's not due to inflation in the housing market and our incomes. You know, those are just making the problem worse. We found as we take calls on the Ramsey Show, people are obsessed with debt, and they've got payments all over, and we've just become accustomed to this life and this financial system that's designed to keep us broke. And that's why I wrote this book, Breaking Free from Broke, to help people kind of unplug from this money matrix and live a life outside of the system completely.
It's a book that's going to step on some toes. I can tell you out there right now, my wife read it in 3 days. She loved it. So there's a lot of types of consumer debt that you talk about. Car loans, mortgages, student loans, credit cards. So in your opinion, you're saying there's no such thing as good debt, right?
Well, first of all, I appreciate that your wife read it. Big fan of hers already. But, you know, when it comes to good debt, I think that's an oxymoron because I know that debt is a thief. I remember being $40,000 in consumer debt, having followed the path everyone told me was the way to go. You know, you got to get the college degree, you got to get the credit score, you got to use the credit card responsibly. And it left me frustrated, anxious, and cynical toward adulthood. So, no, I don't think there's such thing as good debt. The only good debt is the one that's paid off and gone and out of your life because it's not stealing from your paycheck anymore.
I really wanted to hone in on credit cards specifically, a lot of different chapters, but I feel like this is going to hit home with the largest portion of our audience. In your book, you have a top 8, what you hear from viewers and listeners about why I don't ditch a credit card. So number one of the ones we're going to go through, I like the rewards.
Yes, I call this the rewards redeemer in my credit cards chapter. There's 8 archetype characters I talk about, and here's what I hear all the time. I get free flights, I get the free hotel stays, I get the airline miles, I get my cash back. What's wrong with that? I feel like I'm winning. And the truth is, these credit card companies, they're smarter than us. They know us better than we know us. They understand human psychology, and they run thousands of experiments every year on consumers to get them to spend more, to keep them reliant on these cards, and to keep them in debt. And I actually interviewed an ex-Capital One manager who told me all this verbatim, that they see you as a rat in the maze, and they dangle this little carrot of 2% cash back, hoping that you'll pay them 22% interest. And so this is not a game that can be won, and it's not worth your peace or your payments.
I like this one because I think they're safer than a debit card.
Yeah, I call that character the fraud protector, and I hear that all the time. And I have the most empathy for this one because people want to be smart consumers, they want to be safe. But the truth is, debit cards have very similar protections in place. There's something called the Electronic Fund Transfer Act that actually protects debit card users, and you have up to 2 months to report any unauthorized transactions. It limits your liability. And if your card has a Visa or MasterCard logo on that debit card, you're actually protected through their own zero liability policy. And so it's just not true that, you know, the credit card is much safer than a debit card. And I know that because I've been using my debit card for 10 years, and I've had no issues with that.
I pay it in full. That's the last one I wanted to go through because, again, things that I've said.
Yeah, I call this character the perfect spender, and we hear this all the time. I've never paid a dime in interest. I pay it on full in time every month, and the truth with this one is that credit cards cause us to overspend. And there's a recent fMRI technology study that MIT did, and I talk about this in the book, Breaking Free from Broke, and they found that credit cards, when you swipe that card, not only does it release the brakes when it comes to spending, but it also steps on the gas and accelerates your spending. And so basically what they found is that when it hurts less, it costs more. The less friction there is, it's going to hurt us more. And so when you spend your own money instantly versus spending someone else's money and paying it back later, it's a very different part of your brain that's being used. And so I found that when I use my debit card, I look at purchase differently. I spend only money that I have. It's an amazing thing. You can't go into debt. when you use a debit card. And that's one reason I love it.
The book is insightful. It really hits home. There's a lot of humor in it. It's called Breaking Free from Broke. George Kamel is the author. George, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Dave. Always a pleasure.